The sale of Chelsea Football Club was supposed to be a landmark moment, a clean break from an era defined by one man's vast fortune. But more than 2 years later, £2.5 billion proceeds from that sale are not rebuilding lives in war-torn Ukraine, but are instead trapped in a complex legal and political quagmire, igniting a high-stakes battle of wills between the British government and Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich. This protracted standoff has now reached a critical juncture. The newly formed government under Prime Minister Keir Starmer has issued what can only be described as a final ultimatum, a stark demand that threatens to escalate this financial dispute into an unprecedented legal war with global ramifications. The core of the conflict is a fundamental, seemingly irreconcilable disagreement over who should benefit from this immense sum of money. A dispute that lays bare the intricate challenges of using sanctioned assets for geopolitical ends. The British government's position, now championed by the Starmer administration, is unequivocal and has been since the funds were first frozen in 2022. However, Roman Abramovich has a starkly different vision for this colossal fortune. From his perspective, the funds should be distributed more broadly, benefiting all victims of the conflict. This includes not only Ukrainians affected by the invasion, but also individuals in Russia, who he argues are also casualties of the war. Abramovich's representatives have consistently stated his desire for the money to address the needs of those on both sides of the front line. This proposal has been a non-starter for the British government from the very beginning. London views this condition as an attempt to dilute the punitive intent of the sanctions and equates it to indirectly channeling funds back into the aggressor nation. Officials have privately expressed concerns that any money allocated for use in Russia, even for ostensible humanitarian purposes, could be co-opted or redirected by the Russian state, thereby subverting the entire sanctions framework. This fundamental clash of principles is the central reason why the £2.5 billion has remained untouched, locked away in a sanctioned bank account, accruing interest while the humanitarian crisis it was meant to address deepens. The impasse represents a collision of two worlds, one of geopolitical principles and national policy, and another of a private citizen's stated philanthropic intent, however contentious it may be. The timing of this renewed pressure from London is no coincidence and carries significant weight beyond the immediate dispute with Abramovich. The ultimatum has been delivered just as leaders of the European Union convened for a critical summit in Brussels. High on their agenda is a far more ambitious and legally complex proposal: the plan to use the profits generated by frozen Russian sovereign assets, some estimated in the hundreds of billions, to secure a massive compensation loan for Ukraine. This G7-backed initiative aims to provide Kyiv with a substantial financial lifeline, but its implementation is fraught with legal and financial risks. Britain's decisive move against Abramovich is, in part, a strategic signal to its European and international partners. By demonstrating a willingness to pursue a high-profile individual through its domestic courts to seize sanctioned assets, the UK is positioning itself at the forefront of the international effort to make Russia pay for the war. A successful legal outcome for the British government could serve as a powerful international precedent, emboldening other nations to take more aggressive measures against the assets of sanctioned Russian entities and individuals. It is a calculated political maneuver designed to showcase British resolve and legal capability on the world stage, effectively telling its allies that it is ready to move from freezing assets to actively repurposing them for Ukraine's benefit. Nevertheless, the path through the British courts is likely to be long, arduous, and fraught with uncertainty. Legal experts have cautioned that any lawsuit brought by the government against Abramovich would venture into uncharted legal territory. The case would not be a simple matter of enforcing a contractual agreement. It would involve navigating the complex interplay between sanctions law, charity law, and the rights of a sanctioned individual. Abramovich's legal team would undoubtedly mount a formidable defense, potentially arguing that the conditions of the sale were made under duress and that the government's refusal to consider his proposed distribution plan is unreasonable. They could challenge the very legal basis upon which the government claims the authority to dictate the final destination of the funds. A court case of this nature could take years to resolve, winding its way through multiple levels of the judiciary, potentially all the way to the UK's Supreme Court. The complexity is magnified by the fact that the £2.5 billion represents private wealth, not state assets. raising fundamental questions about property rights, even for those under sanction. The outcome is far from certain, and a ruling against the government could have a chilling effect on future attempts to repurpose sanctioned funds, not just in the UK, but globally, ultimately. The standoff over the Chelsea sale proceeds has become a microcosm of the broader international struggle to hold Russia accountable.